If you want Colts talk all year long, you're in the right place.
Fires it upfield, caught over the middle. Michael Pittman Jr., there he goes! He's at the 40, he's at the 30, slips out of a tackle, 20, 10, 5, touchdown! Michael Pittman Jr. takes it 75 yards to the house. Big run, angling left, 40, he's at the 30, down the near sideline, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor, a 49-yard gallop to pay dirt.
In the Indiana Union Construction Industry radio studio, let's get the podcast started.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the post-Memorial Day edition of the official Colts Podcast, the OCP, here on YouTube and Colts Audio Network here on set with JJ Stankevitz, Larra Overton. I'm Matt Taylor. Hello, how'd you spend your rain delay? I always want to know how people got through.
I napped. I was at home and I slept.
That's the optimal way to go through it.
You did tell me you got the Daily Mile in just before the storm hit.
I did. That was true.
Rock and roll.
Yes, because we got back from the family property and got settled in and unloaded the car, and I took off for a brisk little Daily Mile pre-rainstorm.
Yep.
And then, I went to sleep and then woke up and Dan said, they lifted the blackout. So we're like, we can actually watch the race.
That was the best news out of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I should take more naps.
Yeah. And I saw ratings were up. Obviously, that helped with the Indianapolis area, drawing up the ratings. Maybe an idea to maybe push that bad boy back to maybe like a 2 o'clock start time.
I mean, I loved the setting for it.
Like the twilight, late afternoon.
Pato Award talked about how it was it was really cool. He said it'd be awesome to have a night race. I don't think you'll ever see a night race.
No.
We don't have the lights for it.
Well, right. And the neighborhood, I'm sure, would not be too pleased with that.
Yeah, 2 a.m. traffic.
When did you get down to the track?
I got there at 5:15.
Oh.
Did you stay the whole time?
Yes.
Whew.
Slept in the back of a Suburban in the Coke lot.
It doesn't sound too bad.
No.
At least it was a Suburban.
I was able to lay
large
down.
SUV.
Yes.
I got down there at about 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Took an Uber down and then sort of realized, well, why am I here? So I went and I met up with my friends who I was going to the race with up in Broad Ripple.
Yep.
Went to Broad Ripple Tavern, hung out there, watched the storm come in.
So you reverse track, you got all the way to the track and then just left?
Sure did. I walked from the track out of Speedway to go get an Uber out of there. It was fine. I was like, I got a solid 8,000 steps with a cooler backpack.
Yep.
So, then went up to Broad Ripple, came down. We parked on the street in Speedway about 2 blocks from the track at about 2:30. Walked in, dried off our seats, had a great time.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. It was a fantastic race, fantastic time. I got back to my humble abode about 10:30, so it was a long day.
That is, 5 a.m.
Getting
to
up
10
at 4:30-ish, and then, getting back at 10:30. You can imagine. I'm a sleeper anyways. I like to sleep. So yesterday, Memorial Day, was a lot of little pockets of napping here and there.
You know what I loved about the race? Not just like the finish, but like on social media, you had all these Colts players like Kwity Paye, DeForest Buckner, like losing their minds over how good of a race it was. It's so cool to see folks who aren't from here, like me, like myself. I identify with this. Like, come to Indy and live here, and then be like, the race is awesome. This is one of the coolest things that we do.
Come on in.
And you've got
water's
like, the
fine.
civic pride aspect of it. You've got it was an awesome race. What a weekend here.
What a weekend. Obviously, the Pacers were in some tough games. The Pacers should be up 3-1 right now in this series, but that's not how the things went in the last, couple of games in terms of crunch time. Pacers were up 8 with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, ended up getting outscored by 11, losing by 3. Their season is over, but tip of the cap to the Pacers, man. We're right there with you. We're all in next season. It's going to be a 50-win season in the regular season next year.
Another thing, by
Pacers.
the way, that players have full-on supported here.
Adopted
Colts
them.
players are all in on the Pacers. It's really
Absolutely. All right, we're all in talking about OTAs. Anthony Richardson was on the field doing 11-on-11 work for the first time since last October, since his shoulder surgery. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to hear some Anthony Richardson sound and talk about our big picture takeaways from the first week of OTAs as those continue this week. And then next week, the offseason workout program, it ends with the rookie minicamp, I believe June 4th through the 6th. That's
That's what I meant to say. Yes, Freudian slip right there. It is Tuesday following Memorial Day, so we're going to get a couple of those
scrambling
here.
to get this pod out.
He mentioned he lacked sleep, right? He told us that.
And we're also scrambling to get this pod out before we have our big content shoot where we get all the stuff.
It's going to be
graphics, our video board.
Crazy.
So I didn't even charge my laptop. Like I just got a sheet of paper here. That's where we're at.
There you go.
You're on the Jeffrey Gorman program.
Right.
Okay.
I needed my readers on too.
There you go. All right, Elo, your first impressions of Anthony Richardson. He was out there. I've got my thoughts, but I'll tee it up for you in terms of what you saw from AR for the first time since last fall.
I mean, it's no restrictions, right? He's able to push the ball downfield. There's, no he's not between the guardrails on, we got to keep him, between here and here. I mean, it's all systems go.
Right.
That was one of, the really good things that we've been able to see so far. You've been able to see, too, just that comfortability increase with the guys, on days when maybe things haven't been super sharp. They've recovered and had a really crisp day to follow. And that's one thing I always like to see this time of year. You don't expect every single practice to be perfect, right? You want it to be, pretty sharp and quick paced and all of that. But I always like to see is maybe when, things aren't perfect to script, how does the next play go, or how does the next day go from that? And I thought overall, Anthony, with his command of the offense and connecting with his pass catchers, has been really, really good. And it's been a really steady ramp up over what we've seen the last few weeks.
Yeah, I just thought he looked relaxed. He looked comfortable from what I could tell. Nothing looked really sloppy. There weren't a ton of balls on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there are some throws that he would have said, I'd like to have that one back. But, it's May. Mm-hmm. You're installing this stuff. It's not meant to be competitive yet. But, then again, there are some throws where you're like, oh, there he is. He had this one to Kylan Granson down the sideline.
Right.
That Shane Steichen talked about of those are the kind of plays that we need.
Mm-hmm.
It just, just a deep ball on a scramble drill. The kind of plays that remind you, hey, this guy is otherworldly talented.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to me, the biggest takeaway for me was he didn't look like, you guys have both said it, didn't look like a guy coming off shoulder surgery. No restrictions, can make all the throw, velocity was there. What kind of gauge did you get, because a hot button issue this offseason, considering what happened last year, what kind of gauge did you get either physically or people talking about it, whether that be Shane Steichen or Anthony Richardson himself, of changing the mindset, JJ, of how he's going to approach the game, quarters 1 through 3 or the fourth quarter based on time and situation of the game?
I think he's been pretty consistent. And Shane Steichen has also been pretty consistent since the injury, saying we don't want to alter how he plays. Mm-hmm. We don't want to tell him you can't do this. Anthony himself has then taken that and also said, I probably need to be smarter. I need to know the situation, kind of like you mentioned. Hey, it's the second quarter, and it's a 2nd and 10, kind of like the play you got injured on last year. You don't, just go down. You don't need to fight for those extra yards. Now, I say that's kind of what he did on the play where he got hurt.
Right.
Was he wasn't really fighting for extra yards. He went down. But just the sort of be a little bit smarter with some of these decisions. Anthony's talked a lot about the concussion in Houston and how he slowed up on that play and how he knows he can't do that. But I don't think this is a situation where he's playing stupid. It's not a situation where he's playing reckless. It's just you are the franchise quarterback. You do need to be just a skosh more aware of the situation, which is something that he has acknowledged.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Larra. The fact that they're talking about it means that everyone knows. And this is not Anthony Richardson either saying it or thinking it, but it's just the reality. We've talked about this. This team is going to go, by and large, how far Anthony Richardson can take them. And they have built this team in the offseason with the idea in mind, or the assumption in mind, that Anthony Richardson is going to be special. And I think that he will. But saying that, he's got to be available. And them talking about this is everyone self-consciously admitting that, hey, we got to be smart here. We got to be smart in terms of how he runs with the football, but also if you're Shane Steichen and Jim Bob Cooter, it's when we decide to keep the football in his hands.
And I think that you can talk about it and have all the conversations and watch the film and say, okay, what would you do in this given situation? But it all comes down to when it happens live on field. are you able to, because the thing is, he's so gifted.
Lots of process
He's
there.
and he's just so gifted. He's been able to rely upon that incredible athleticism in so many situations. Just his getting more comfortable switching that in a different way. So I think that it's a great thing to do right now. We're not really going to know until we get into that early part of the season how comfortable he is in doing that. And certainly he has the ability to do it. He's been working on it. He's incredibly coachable and receptive to all of those things. But it's just a completely different test when it happens in game action.
Right.
And I think one other thing that makes it so difficult is think about the style of the guys that you're on the field with. We talk about the physicality of Michael Pittman Jr. and you think about the hits that he takes and makes incredible, contested grabs. You watch how Jonathan Taylor runs. You watch how, Zach Moss, the barreling style of taking down 3 and 4 defenders. So when you're the quarterback, how hard is it if you feel like, I can't match that level of what these other guys on the field are doing? Because you do have to look at yourself in a different scope with that. So I think that's one of the things that's interesting too, is it's ingrained in this team to play that way, to play with that high level of physicality. That physicality though can still be there. It just has to look a little bit different when you're talking about Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, well said right there. Here's Anthony Richardson himself talking about if he needs to change that playing style coming up in the fall.
I don't think there's any way I could have avoided, what happened to me. Just a regular routine tackle. I tried to brace myself for the fall, and just my shoulder just, did what it did. There's nothing I could do about that. Changing my game, my play style. I don't feel like there's anything wrong with my play style. People see me. I'm a big quarterback, so they always think, he wants to run the ball all the time. He wants to be physical, and that's what's going to get him hurt. When that's not the case. The times I did get hurt, is the one time, the one concussion, that was me completely because I slowed down by the end zone. You're never supposed to do that. And then everything else, it just happened because we played a dangerous game. And there's nothing I can do about that. But necessarily changing my play, I don't think I want to change it. But, being smart, knowing when to get extra yards and knowing when to get down, I feel like I know how to do that. It's just, now that I have to do it and do it at the right time, I guess. So I don't think I'm going to change anything, but being smarter for the team, of course.
A lot of growth. That's a really mature answer from a guy that basically just turned last week 22 years old. We forget that, I think, sometimes when you talk about the weight of the world, or at least the weight of the pressure of the franchise on this young man's shoulders, JJ. But again, this is a guy that understands that I got to be smart, but when the game's on the line, he's a football player, and he's probably the best football player the Colts have in terms of, obviously, overall athleticism.
Yeah, I like this answer a lot, Matt, from Anthony, because what it showed me is that he's not timid. He's not saying, I got hurt last year. I need to, he's getting a little tight. It's, hey, I play football.
And they drafted him 4th overall for a reason.
Right. They drafted him 4th overall because of these special athletic talents that he has. That's one of the aspects of it. But if he showed up and he was like, I know, I need to be smarter, and maybe I need to not run it as much. Like, no, you do play football at the end of the day, and football is a violent sport where there's a lot of contact. Yeah. And the play that he got hurt on, like his explanation of it was, I was trying to get down and I landed on my shoulder, and it's
football.
It's football,
yeah.
And I like that he has this approach because, again, like you mentioned, Matt, with him being 22, this is one of those things where if he wasn't as mature as he is, maybe he would say, well, I got to protect myself.
Yeah.
But it's, hey, I do need to protect myself a little bit, but look, I play football. That's the kind of answer I wanted to hear out of Anthony.
All right, let's go back to Anthony Richardson. Again, a lot of pressure on him for next season in order to come back and prove that he can stay healthy, stay available. But also, again, you talk about those expectations for, what kind of productivity are we going to see out of him next year? You guys did those reckless predictions. And can he have a better year statistically than C.J. Stroud? Where is Anthony Richardson in the pecking order of the great quarterbacks in the league right now? Anthony Richardson's not worried about that. He's not at all worried about the perfect, quote-unquote, perfect season for next year.
Well, not necessarily chasing a perfect season, because I know it's never going to happen. Despite how much I want it to happen, it's never going to happen. So I just want to make sure I'm on point and just do my job one play at a time. And if I do that, then that might be the perfect season. So just focus one play at a time, that's all.
Again, I love that last line from Anthony Richardson. Just focus one play at a time. That's all you got to do. And unfortunately, that ability to do that was taken away from him last October. A lot of time to sit and compartmentalize and think about, the game cerebrally. Larra, this is a guy that I think is going to be much, much better, both physically and mentally in year 2. But in saying that, we've talked about this all offseason. 173 snaps. Overall, played just 15% of the total offensive snaps from last year. It's not going to be perfect. It wasn't perfect last week when we saw him in the OTAs. He looked at times like a second-year quarterback that had missed some time, but he's going to be special. You just hope those rookie speed bumps are kind of smoothed out by the explosive plays that he's going to be able to provide.
Certainly, it'll balance everything out, and, it'll negate some of those types of moments. And one of the things that I hope that people go in to the season with is allowing him a bit of that grace, allowing him a bit of that kind of growth early on in the season. And I'm okay with having, a few of those, would have liked to have that one back. But are we seeing the things that you want to see? And this is something that Shane, talked about last week. And I have it back in my tweets from last week. I'd have to pull it up. But, we just talked about he's putting the ball in the right places, right? He's getting it out on time. He's doing those things. And I think if he's playing smart and for the most part giving you exactly that, yes, give him a little bit of grace in those first, especially, 3 or 4 games of the season. Because my thing is just make sure you're on the ascend over the middle part of this season, right? Get those things out early and then continue to improve and incrementally strengthen as an offense so that you're playing your best football of this season in December.
I think this is such a good point to think about Anthony, about giving him that grace and okay, if he sprays a throw, all right, you can move on to the next play. He still is young, but the explosiveness aspect of it. Here, a situation that could happen is if you run it on first down, maybe you don't get a whole lot. Then he sprays a throw on second down, and you got 3rd and 8, well, he can pin it on Josh Downs' back shoulder 30 yards over the middle to convert a 3rd and 8. He has that explosive ability, which allows him to overcome mistakes better than a quarterback who maybe does not have that explosive-ness in him.
Yeah, and I love this one, too. You talk about coming in last year, 4th overall pick, and all the rhetoric around Anthony Richardson. He's only played 13 games, comes in and is semi-competing just because he's a rookie. The fact that he's a first-year player and he did have so much inexperience coming from college, but semi-competing for that starting job, you got to prove it, you got to see it with Gardner Minshew. No. None of that now. Anthony Richardson is the guy, and this team understands his work ethic. They have completely bought into him as a leader. He's proven that. This is a completely different offseason from last year because everybody now knows that the future is AR, and he's earned the right to be the franchise quarterback. So here are his expectations and, quite frankly, the growth that he wants to see from himself from year 1 to year 2.
Just relaxing. Last year was so much, being a rookie, so much that I had to take on, so much I put on myself, mentally. I'm the quarterback, so I wanted to, be the best version of myself for the team. And, now that the team knows that, I'm a worker, I don't plan on stopping that. So just keep working, honestly. And now I get to relax and focus on, certain things, more details, and just try to, perfect the things I do know.
So, again, a lot packed into that soundbite. A lot of it is applicable to the practice field and in between the lines and the gridiron and in the locker room too, but also, JJ, if you can kind of read between the lines, no pun intended, within that soundbite, now he can just sort of be himself and kind of let his hair down metaphorically and lead the way that he wants to. Not that he wasn't doing that last year, but again, everybody now has a better understanding of who he is, what his personality is, and what the locker room needs to do to adapt to him to allow him to thrive.
Well, I think the way the Colts set it up last year for him was really smart, where we know this is going to be your team, and ideally you're going to be our starting quarterback, but you got to earn it. And you have to earn it to the locker room. You have to prove to the locker room you can be that guy.
And he's also just going through that rookie whirlwind.
Right. So
where do I park?
Right.
Where's the training room?
Who's in the cafeteria?
Who do I talk to for this? Right. Yeah.
But once he proves that, that's a big step for the rest of the team. That he got voted a team captain.
Sure.
And now you kind of add in, okay, well now you aren't you do know where you're going around the building. So now what you're proving is you got to prove it every year, but you're not proving you belong. now you're proving you can be the guy. You can be the long-term thing. And that's different when you feel more relaxed and more comfortable. Like, and I think just reading between the lines, I don't think his confidence ever wavered, but it's probably a different kind of confidence.
Yeah.
Hey, I've done it. I know it was only 173 snaps, but I've operated around this team. I've been around the team. I feel like I'm a better quarterback going into year 2. And that relaxation factor that he talked about, I think, is so important for a quarterback when they make that year 1 to year 2 jump.
Larra, one more soundbite we need to get to, but before we do that, and this is a loaded question, I understand, but in what ways last week did you see Anthony Richardson just in and out of the huddle, at the line of scrimmage, between plays, engaging with teammates? In what ways did you see him a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more comfortable than he was this time last year when everything was being thrown at him for the first time?
I mean, I don't think it looked to me, I don't think it looked that different because Anthony is so even as a person.
Yeah.
Like, that's just his demeanor. You think about that when I think it was Chris Ballard was asked about this last year, going into camp, and he talked about like he never is up here or down here. He really strikes that all the time of this level of poise and composure all at once. So I don't think, from what I can recall, obviously small sample size last year, but it wasn't. There weren't these times where he looked really rattled or that, yes, certainly it's coming at him from all sides, but I never thought he exuded that or led on to that. And I think that is a big part of why he was, as a rookie, named a team captain, because of this, just this overwhelming, extensive confidence that just is a ripple effect over the entire offense, like the way that he conducts himself. So I don't think it was not a drastic difference or anything much difference from what we saw, just because that's truly who he is. Yes, his comfort level is increasing, but to me, confidence has always been there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, also just think about too, like as the Colts are going through these installs right now, this is probably the 4th, 5th time that he's gone through installing some of these things, probably 3rd or 4th, whatever it is. Like, you get the play call, and last year he probably had to like listen really intently of like you've seen those videos that like Orlovsky and Chase Daniel have done of like, here's the play call, and it's like 40 words, and if you've never played quarterback, halfway through your eyes probably just glaze over, and you're like, what the heck is this? But for him,
it's like the little kids at Snacks Crossing Elementary School when Shane was up at the board on the schedule release video.
Exactly.
That was incredible. Yeah, right.
That's the look that you get.
That's
yes.
But
we've seen the bare front. Now we're going to go. Yeah, exactly.
But imagine now, like this is he probably hears a couple of keywords and it's like, I know the play and I can go spit it out in the huddle without having to think about it as much. It's just with repetition where you've done it, and he probably said those things confidently last year, but now it's like it's second nature to him to be able to know, here's the play call, here's the situation, and also his relationship with Shane now being in year 2. He has an idea of what to expect from Shane. Shane has an idea of what to expect from him in terms of their communication, in terms of, hey, what play you thinking here? That stuff all matters a lot.
Yeah, indeed. All right, one final time. Let's go back to practice last week here from Anthony Richardson on the comfort level that he has settling in within this offense here in the spring.
I'm more comfortable with the offense now. Now that I have like a year under my belt, not a year of playing time, but, just being in the meetings every day. Then just studying, all the time. Coming here early in the morning, meeting with Shane, that's something I take pride in, because if I know the offense inside and out like Shane does, then I think we're going to be unstoppable. So, I just got to keep perfecting it and just keep trusting myself and trusting the offense.
Again, Anthony Richardson last week of week 1 of OTAs for the Indianapolis Colts. Those continue this week. And that was another one of the bigger picture takeaways I had last week was just, we talked about it, the continuity. 21 out of 22 starters were available on the field last week. The only exception, I believe, was Braden Smith at the right tackle position as he continues to rehab from off-season surgery. But Jonathan Taylor was out there with Anthony Richardson for the first time, in a long time. What was it, 2-3 snaps last year they played together. Only a handful of practices they were on the field together for last year. Adonai Mitchell was on the field. Michael Pittman was on the field.
Jelani Woods.
Josh Downs, Jelani Woods, which is a really good segue because talking about bigger picture things or other things that stood out to us last week in week 1 of OTAs, Jelani Woods, number 80, was out there making plays.
Yep.
And what a sight for sore eyes as he battled multiple hamstring injuries last year. And I'm saying because of that, JJ, he's going to be fighting tooth and nail. He's going to be scratching and clawing to make this team this year because of all of the different skill sets within this tight end room. But if he's healthy, he could be a major part of the Colts' push to be more explosive, especially in the middle of the field and up the seams next year with Anthony Richardson.
He had a little catch and run.
It was nice,
where, that's sort of your reminder of, like, the way that Jelani Woods moves at 6'7", 260, whatever he is not the way that people who are his size should move. And that was a welcome sight to see that he's got to consistently remain available.
Right.
But I don't know if you follow him on Instagram. He all offseason has been posting like workout videos, and a lot of players do that. But for him, I think there is some meaning in that of like, hey, I'm back, I'm ready to go. Those hamstring issues that nagged me and caused me to miss an entire year are a thing of the past, and I've done everything in my power to make sure they do not come back.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a really, really good thing to see. The commitment that he has put in this offseason to taking care of his body.
Yeah. And speaking of availability, again, on the offensive side of the ball, the big headliner there, again, was Jelani Woods. But on the defensive side of the ball, Larra, I love seeing Juju Brents out there. This time last year with the wrist, then throughout the season, missed 9 games with quad and hamstring injuries. His availability this year in the spring, he's taking that very, very seriously. He looks much improved. And
I thought he looked really fast out there. Like right now, it's not meant to be hyper competitive, right? You can't do full contact type of things, but I thought that he's towing that line of absolutely making sure like he's maximizing every rep that he's out there on the field. To me, I thought he looked even better than where he left off at the end of last season. Like all around, like having that health there, just his strength, his confidence in his playmaking ability. I think he's vocal out there. Like he'll talk.
I like it.
I like it a lot. Like Juju brings an edge a bit back there out on the practice field when he's out there and he's talking sometimes with Michael Pittman, or whoever it might be. Like you think about some of the more vocal guys in a really healthy, like good competitive way that maybe we haven't seen as much of. And I think it's a really good thing where this team right now does have a little bit of nastiness about them that's fun to see. And I mean that in like a very like healthy way that is going to, give them a bit more of an edge and some of those things that you're going to see put on display when we get into training camp.
So Juju said last week that he's treating these OTA reps like a game because he didn't have as much of it last year. And like the end of the season. None of it.
He has that the wrist coming out of the draft. And yeah.
Sure, of course.
But the end of the season, you can tell, has really stuck with him.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't able to finish the season healthy. That has ate at him, and that has clearly motivated him to in a way this offseason that, again, it's leading to, like when you mentioned the jawing that he's having and the way that he looks and moves, it looks like he's treating this like a game.
Yeah,
like he knows the value of this, and he's so hungry to get back out there, put a helmet on, and go play football, even if it's, in shorts without pads yet. Like, he's not taking any of this for granted, and that's another really good thing.
Yeah, when healthy, when available, he's a starter. He's a big-time contributor for the Colts on defense. All right, grab bag as we close out here. Anything else that stood out to you? You had a big-time pick and a takeaway by Jalen Carlisle. That 6'5" wingspan, that athleticism was on full display. I think he picked off Joe Flacco.
He did. Jalen, that interception, so I don't know if you ever played like NCAA football, like the old game. Obviously, the new one's coming out, but the old game had this problem. Like 2008, 2009, it was like the 7-foot linebacker, where it's like anytime you threw it over the middle, if the linebacker was in zone, they were going to pick it off. And it's like, well, I lobbed it. What the heck? And now I watched Jalen Carlisle do that, and I'm like, there it is. There's your 7-foot linebacker from NCAA football 09. Just you're trying to throw over the middle. Nope, guy's got to condor-like wingspan is going to pick it off.
And Shane mentioned it. He's like, that's exactly where I would have placed the ball.
Right,
like,
yes.
that's exactly where I was looking, and totally underestimated the length and the athleticism of a guy to make that kind of a play. It was unreal.
That's why having 34.25-inch arms does matter.
Yeah,
when you're
don't
playing
forget,
linebacker.
this is a guy going from safety in the defensive backfield to linebackers, and the Colts have done that before.
Daniel Scott also
Daniel
had an interception.
Scott,
A guy who Chris Ballard has mentioned, like, at every single turn this offseason. Hey, don't forget about this guy. We really liked him.
It's like an extra draft pick this year. Yeah.
He tore his ACL last year during the offseason program, and a guy who the Colts really like and think has some upside to potentially compete to play some safety this year.
No doubt about it. And again, I know you talked about this before we hit the record button, but and you mentioned it. I totally agree, and I noted it when I saw it. Again, we talked about it earlier, but Jonathan Taylor out there, but my God, he looks good.
Yeah.
He looks really good.
Seeing 5 and 28 next to each other, you're just
It's been a while that Jonathan has been healthy at this point.
Right.
No doubt.
I mean, you kind of think back and you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. At the end of each season, he's had to kind of come off of something and recover and rehab, and he has had this gift of health in the offseason to just be able to continuously build for the most part, after having the hand that he'd battled through last season and some other things, late. And I mean, he looks incredibly strong. He looks refreshed.
Yes, refreshed is a good way to put it. One other thing I wanted to note is you and Jeffrey last week.
What did we do?
You chatted with Juju Brents.
Correct, yeah.
And something he said, he was like, sorry, I'm running a little late. AD and I were out on the field for 20 minutes working on releases and footwork and stuff. And this is not an isolated thing with AD Mitchell. You remember at rookie minicamp, that first day of rookie minicamp, they were going to bring AD to the podium to talk. And we're waiting, and I look over, and he's working on releases. He's got Keaton Slovis throwing him like 40 balls to work on stuff. This is a guy who, like that what Chris Ballard said after the draft, where he said it was BS, all the stuff about his maturity and all that. We have seen a remarkable work ethic from A.D. Mitchell, a guy who cares, a guy who really, this matters to him. All that stuff, just seeing what AD has been like out on the field and then after practice, just makes me think even more and more. All that stuff, it's just one scout spouting some BS about the guy.
Also, just seeing him on the field, when I was watching the guys come out, I was grabbing some clips and stuff last week, and when he walked out, I'm like, holy, he is larger than what...
He looks like a running back.
He is so much bigger than what I thought, like going through, like just watching things. Like, I mean, even when you watch, the film from Texas and things, like, I was like, oh, like,
This dude can move, too.
Yeah.
The route running, the cutting. Yeah, he's athletic.
Those two things. I can't wait for training camp when our fans get to see it.
Yeah.
The way that he catches the ball, it's out here. It is out in front of his body. That takes a lot of confidence to go do that. And that takes really good hands. The guy only had, one drop in his last 2 years of college.
That's right.
Like, he's got a really good set of hands on him in addition to some of that athleticism and fluidity in his route running.
Yeah. And a clutch player, primetime player in those college football playoff games, all kinds of touchdowns, big moments for his teams on the biggest stage. We're clutch as well, but we got to run. We got people coming in to take over this space. So we got a jet. But again, OTAs for the Colts, they roll on. The rest of this week, we'll have player interviews, and we'll have press conference sound and press conference video coming up on Thursday when the media gets back involved with the Colts here in OTAs. And again, it all wraps up with veteran minicamp next week. So the offseason workout program kind of coming to its zenith here and its apex to take off.
Two great words.
This is the penultimate week.
That's right. All right.
The pinnacle.
Yeah.
The penultimate pinnacle.
Trying to like wrap up all of these IndyCar words and these racing words and wrap it up here.
No one does it as good as Lee Diffie does.
They do.
I mean,
They do a fantastic job.
Lee, man.
Well done. Well done. And again, thank you everybody for listening here and watching on YouTube. We'll be back next week breaking down week number 2 of the Colts OTA program, and a lot to talk about and a lot to like in terms of the potential of this team. For Larra Overton, JJ Stankevitz, I'm Matt Taylor. We'll talk to you next week here on the official Colts Podcast. So long.